Hey, it's been a minute. I haven't posted since May, and my last video was, the religious ramble. So, hi again. I wasn't planning on taking such a long break, but here we are. Anyway, I've been thinking a lot about this thing online, this aesthetic called Traumacore. So I've been sitting with this for a while, thinking about what it actually means, where it came from, why it exists, and honestly, how it connects with people. And I wanted to make a video about that. So before we get too deep into the visuals or the community or all the messy stuff, I think it helps to take a step back and look at where Traumacore even came from. How did this thing start? Why does it exist? And it's kind of wild when you trace it back to its roots. So Traumacore really started showing up online in the mid to late 2010s. It came out of the need for people to process trauma visually, because sometimes words aren't enough. The imagery is all about contrast. You'll see these soft, nostalgic, and almost cute things, but then right next to them, really dark, disturbing stuff. And that contrast is kind of the point. It's reflecting how trauma feels. It's not neat, it's not pretty, it's messy, and sometimes it's really hard to make sense of. It can happen to anyone at any age, and it can steal your innocence away. It's just really fucked up. But especially when you're a child trying to process that, this is kind of what they're trying to represent. Traumacore is kind of this digital revolution of really old ideas, processing pain through art, making the internal external, but updated for the internet era, full of glitches, pixelated nostalgia, and shared spaces where people can see and go, oh, someone else gets this. And while we're on the topic of Traumacore's roots, I want to take a little detour and talk about Morut, because honestly, that's the direct predecessor. The name itself is a mashup of morbid and cute and started in the early 2010s as well. It's all about the same kind of contrast we see in Traumacore. Soft, hyper-feminine, almost childlike girlhood imagery paired with really dark themes like true crime, gothic horror, and trauma. Morut visuals often bring up physical abuse, sexual assault, religious guilt, eating disorders, things that are really heavy, personal, and sometimes almost impossible to talk about. The cute imagery isn't just aesthetic, it's this longing of girlhood or innocence that was taken away, like I said earlier. Angels, little children motifs, soft pastel colors, they're all this idealized version of purity, the life you wish you could have had but didn't. And then it's immediately interrupted by this darker, sometimes grotesque reality, featuring rot, dirtiness, poverty, and small-town horror vibes. It's supposed to be intense. Morut is kind of like Traumacore's spiritual ancestor. It's more explicit sometimes, more Southern Gothic, think Lana Del Rey, a little Ethel Cain, but the core idea is the same, taking your trauma, all of it, and putting it out there in a visual, emotional, and strangely communal way. Moving on to the community side of Traumacore, this is where it gets really interesting. Traumacore isn't just an aesthetic you look at, it's a space you use to process, connect, and survive in a way. It functions almost like a visual journal or art therapy. People post, reblog, or create images and music that expresses feelings that are complicated or heavy. They're hard to put into words, and the cool part is, and maybe the most important part, is that it helps people feel less alone. Seeing someone else articulate a feeling you didn't even know you had, that's huge. For some people, Traumacore is a coping mechanism. Some people create the art themselves, some just consume it, but either way it can provide relief, understanding, or even a kind of safe triggering. Seeing things that hurt but in a controlled, aestheticized way. In a world where mental health resources are limited and talking about trauma can be isolating, having this kind of outlet can be life-supporting. But there are also rules, unspoken and sometimes very clear. This isn't for everyone. A lot of people in the community will discourage participation from people who haven't experienced trauma themselves, because it can feel exploitative, like fetishizing pain that isn't yours. The point is, I get it. Traumacore isn't just style points, it's the expression of something that's often life-altering, and it deserves respect. The community is layered. Some people use it to understand others, some express themselves, some to just appreciate the aesthetics, and it's all valid. It's people trying to articulate the unexplainable. Now let's talk about some of the criticisms, because Traumacore isn't without its controversies. A lot of people argue that it romanticizes, or as I said before, aestheticizes trauma and mental illness. The idea being that making these things beautiful or stylized, it risks trivializing real lived experiences. And I get that concern. Trauma is horrific, and turning into an aesthetic can feel like softening or glamorizing pain that ruined lives. Oh, it's so difficult. I'll get into it. Critics often worry that it might reinforce some unhealthy patterns. Like if someone centers their identity around trauma or constantly surrounds themselves with triggering imagery, it could interfere with healing, or even worsen conditions like eating disorders or anxiety. And some people point out that certain imagery, like gore, abuse, religious guilt, can be very triggering to those who aren't prepared. At the same time, it's complicated. Traumacore is not trying to be cute for the sake of it. It's not about making trauma fun. It's about reflecting on reality, or at least the internal reality of someone who's lived through trauma, as accurately as possible, you know what I mean? It's messy, sometimes ugly, and it's intentionally unpolished. The beauty people see is not aestheticized happiness, it's human being, and an attempt to understand, process, and survive feelings that are nearly impossible to put into words. I know you won't believe me when I say this, but I try not to let my opinions obfuscate the facts. But I think it's so weird to say that we shouldn't aestheticize mental health. I mean, it exists. It's not going away. You don't get to shield your eyes and pretend we don't exist, especially in our own designated spaces. It's an active choice to participate in Traumacore, and you can choose to, block all content relating to it. So yeah, I understand the criticism, and some of it's valid, but at the same time, I don't think it's fair to dismiss Traumacore outright. It's doing work that words alone can't, and it's creating connections and understanding in a dark space. My opinion is, and this is just me, Traumacore hits differently than a lot of other internet aesthetics. Personally, it's not new to me. I've been living in Traumacore blogs since 2018. Outside of my personal use, humans have been using art to process trauma forever. Think Van Gogh, Shakespeare, Pink Floyd, the whole stereotype of suffering artists. The difference with Traumacore is that it's not trying to make pain beautiful or meaningful. It's trying to reflect on how trauma feels. And that's what resonates with me. Does it upset me when people engage with it in a purely aesthetic way? It's an individual basis. Should people without trauma use it? I don't think so. But trauma itself is such a diverse term, and it's an invisible condition. You can't just judge people and say, well, you're not allowed to participate because you think they don't have trauma. You don't know someone's story. I appreciate that there are people who just don't get it. They haven't experienced trauma like this, and that's okay. They're not necessarily harming anyone by exploring the aesthetic superficially. I'm not one to judge. Many people are in denial about trauma or the way they cope we might not understand. Maybe they're pretending it's their style, but who's to say that's wrong for them? So after all that, the history, the visuals, the community, the criticisms, and just how I feel about it, it makes you take a step back and think about what Traumacore really is. It's complicated, sometimes comforting, and almost always human. That's worth pausing on before we wrap this up. I think the thing about Traumacore is that it reminds us that art doesn't have to be pretty or polished to be meaningful. It reminds us that pain can be shared. I don't know, the isolation can be softened by connection, and even the darkest experiences can be expressed in ways that are deeply human through Traumacore. But that's it for today. If you liked this video or found it interesting, or even just want to support me coming back after a long break, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I've got a lot more thoughts swirling around up there that I want to share, and if you want to be notified when I post, hit that bell notification so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys. Girl, let me use my inhaler. But really, I've been gone forever. I meant to post a little Wisconsin vlog. I didn't. I will be. So keep an eye out for that. But, I love scripted videos. Holy shit. Me and my friends getting together, getting different facts together and sources, and just having fun and shooting the shit together. Amazing.